My name is Vivian, 26 years old, an emergency room nurse living in Charlotte, North Carolina. That day was my birthday. But instead of a cake or a birthday wish, I received a message from my mother. Your father sold the car. Don't be selfish. Today is about Derek. I stood frozen in the hospital parking lot, light rain falling around me, still holding the keys to a car that no longer existed. That car had been the dream I worked toward for 3 years. And now it was gone. Have you ever had something taken from you by the very people who were supposed to protect you? Something you spent your youth building piece by piece? If this story stirs something in you, leave a comment below. Tap like if you believe gratitude should never be an excuse for someone to take advantage of you. And don't forget to subscribe, because what I left on the kitchen counter that night brought my entire family to its knees. I was born and raised in a 3-bedroom house on the southern edge of Charlotte. The house wasn't big, but when I was little, I believed warmth came from having a family. The older I got, the clearer it became. Some houses are just shelters. They're not homes. My family included my father, Gerald, a man who could turn any sentence into a command. My mother, Cynthia, was softer spoken, gentler, but the way she always stood behind him, even in the face of injustice, made me feel like her loyalty was to keeping the peace, not to anyone else. Then there was Derek, my younger brother, the one they proudly called the future of our family. From a young age, I was taught that older sisters are supposed to give way. When Derek got poor grades, my mother would say, "You should tutor him instead of wasting time on silly things." In high school, I asked to join the music club. But my dad said, "Derek needs your help with his assignments. If he succeeds, it's because of you, so it's your achievement too." I stayed quiet and dropped music. That's when I started shelving my dreams. I began working part-time at 16, taking evening shifts at a coffee shop near home. I studied, I waited tables, I helped Derek prep for his exams. As for him, he never worked a day. Not a single part-time job, not even an hour of community service at school. My parents said, "Let him focus on academics. He's our hope for college." Me. I was the hope to keep the lights on. At 18, I was told to start paying rent. $400 a month. First, I thought it was a joke. But my mother handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten list from my dad detailing expenses: utilities, groceries, household costs. "Everyone contributes," he said. "No freeloaders." Of course, everyone didn't include Derek. I remember vividly when Derek turned 17. My parents bought him a brand new Ford Focus. Red ribbon tied on the driveway, a 3-layer cake, and a backyard party with all his friends. I was in the kitchen helping my mom barbecue. No one asked if I wanted to join. When I accidentally dropped the carving knife, my dad snapped, "Focus. Today is your brother's special day." As for me, I haven't had a birthday party since I was 12. Dad said, "You're too old for that nonsense." I used to bake my own cupcakes and light the candles alone in my room while the rest of the family watched TV in the living room. That became my tradition. But I didn't stop trying. I chose nursing because I wanted to help people, and because the tuition was more affordable. I earned community scholarships, took weekend classes, worked night shifts, saved every penny. I did it all. Nurse, intern, ER assistant, summer construction gigs, even helped at a wedding bakery. And Derek? He went to elite summer camps, had private SAT tutors, got flown to college tours in states like Georgia and Illinois. I wasn't jealous. Not in that way. But I hurt. I hurt because even though I was the one keeping the house clean, bringing in money, buying the new washer, fixing the leaky pipes, restocking the fridge every weekend, I was still treated like a tenant. And Derek, just for studying, was their pride and joy. Anytime I voiced how I felt, Dad would say, "You should be grateful you have a roof over your head." Adults don't complain. Adults contribute. Mom would just look at me and say, "Don't bother your father when he's tired." Once I asked, "What about Derek?" She replied, "He's still a kid." A kid. I stood speechless. "Mom, he's 20. But in their eyes, Derek would always be the fragile son to be coddled. And I, the one who had to carry it all. Like when I had the flu and still had to go to work because if I didn't, the utility bills would go unpaid. Like when I slipped and fell at the hospital and all Mom texted was, "Don't forget the gas bill this month." So when I received that message, "Your dad sold the car. Don't be selfish. Today is about Derek." I didn't just lose a car. I lost the last thing I'd built that they hadn't yet touched. And that car wasn't just a vehicle. It was freedom. It marked how far I'd come, from walking to school using grocery coupons to afford gas, to driving 3 hours just for the interview that got me this nursing job. And now, without asking, without warning, without apology, just a message. Like how my family has always treated me, as if I were optional. That night, still in scrubs stained with blood from the ear, I stood motionless in the rain, gripping my phone. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I stayed still. Because I realized, the worst betrayal isn't being hurt. It's being hurt by the very people who once taught you that blood means forever. I started noticing something was wrong about 3 weeks before my birthday. It was a weekend and I planned to print out some documents to update my car insurance. When I opened the drawer in my room, where I kept all my important files since buying the car, I froze. The blue folder with the clear plastic cover was gone. I searched the whole drawer. Then the one beneath it. Then the nightstand, my old backpack behind the closet. Nothing. The car title, the original purchase agreement, the insurance copy, all vanished. I went downstairs and asked my mom, "Did you take my car documents?" The blue folder. She was making soup, stirring steadily, not looking at me. "What papers? Maybe you misplaced them." "No, Mom. I remember exactly. Left drawer, center slot, next to my old phone charger. You misplace things all the time. Like your credit card, remember? It was in your wallet." I stayed quiet. My mother always sounded calm, but something in her voice made me stop asking. It wasn't that she didn't know. It was that she didn't want to say. That afternoon I asked my dad. He was wiping down his SUV in the driveway, the one he'd bought 6 months earlier after tapping into retirement savings, as he called it. When I approached, he didn't look up. "Dad, have you seen my car paperwork?" The blue folder from my room. Papers. You worry too much. It's just documents. I need them for the insurance renewal. I need the original title." He shrugged, wiping the side mirror. "I took care of that when I got the inspection done. You were busy, remember?" I froze. There had been a morning, over a month ago, when he called while I was getting ready for work. "Your car needs its routine checkup. I'll take it. Just sign this real quick." I hadn't read the form. I was scarfing down breakfast. So I signed. Absent-mindedly. "Why didn't you give the documents back?" "You never asked." I stood there watching him crouch under the car, suddenly cold to my core. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. But without proof, I didn't know how to confront it. A few days later, I received a letter from the Georgia Department of Transportation. I still remember opening it, the thin paper, the red seal at the top, the bold text. "Traffic violation notice. Photo enclosed." I frowned. Georgia. In the photo there was a silver-gray Toyota Corolla. The license plate was mine. No doubt about it. And the timestamp on the violation? 3 days ago at 10 a.m. I panicked and flipped through my work schedule. That day I had an ER shift from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It couldn't have been me. And it couldn't have been my car because I had driven it to the hospital that day. Unless someone had used my license plate or my actual car, and I had no idea. I snapped a picture of the letter and sent it to my best friend Alyssa, a civil attorney. She called me back immediately after seeing the image. "Vivian, are you sure your car didn't leave Charlotte that day?" "Positive. I was at the hospital all day." "Then someone may have used your car or temporarily transferred ownership. But if you didn't know about it, this could be serious." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. My parents' fragmented comments began to piece together a picture I didn't want to believe was true. I texted my dad directly. "Dad, did my car go to Georgia earlier this week? I just got a traffic violation notice." It took nearly an hour before he responded. "Probably a mistake. Don't trust that nonsense." I read the message over and over. No explanation. No outright denial. Just avoidance. That night when I got home, I quietly checked the trunk. The first aid kit I always kept inside was gone. So was the emergency water bottle. I turned on the dashcam. Black screen. Data wiped. I could hardly breathe. No way, unless someone had deliberately hidden the fact that the car had been used without me. I looked around the yard. Light from the living room spilled outward. My mom was watching TV and my dad wasn't home yet. My heart pounded in my chest. A thought flashed through my mind. And once it came, I couldn't push it away. Were they planning to sell the car? And if so, had it all started even before my birthday? The atmosphere in the house felt different that evening. Mom cooked my favorite barbecue dish. But it wasn't for me. Everything centered around Derek going off to college. My hands trembled as I ate, ready to drop my chopsticks at any moment. Dad talked about enrollment costs while chewing. New laptop, books, dorm fees. All that adds up. We'll have to sell something. His voice was so casual, like it wasn't tied to anyone in particular. I turned to Mom. She avoided my eyes. And I knew. Even if they hadn't said it outright, I knew. I knew that car was no longer mine. I knew every document I'd stored in my drawer, every form I'd signed in a hurry, every vague statement, every time Mom dodged my gaze. All of it led to that. I just hadn't been ready to face it. But they were ready. And they thought I would stay silent like always. But they were wrong. That night, dinner was more elaborate than usual. My mom made dishes she usually reserved for the holidays. Honey-glazed barbecue, Southern-style potato salad, crisp buttered rolls. The scent filled the whole house, warm and inviting. Dad set the table with the blue porcelain plates he always called for important guests. I stared at them and felt nothing. In the kitchen corner, a two-tier cake sat on the counter. I glanced at the lettering in blue icing. Congratulations, Derek. Here's to new beginnings. I wasn't surprised. But the sting behind my eyes forced me to turn away to hide the tear that had slipped out. I reminded myself, don't expect anything. Don't hope they'll remember. But a small part of me still held on to a quiet wish that maybe, just maybe, someone would say, hey, it's also Vivian's birthday today. But no. No one did. Derek appeared in a crisp white shirt, hair neatly styled, face glowing. He sat down with a proud grin, like tonight's celebration was all his. And it really was. Mom buzzed around the table, beaming. Look at this, sweetie, I made the potatoes just the way you like them. Dad raised his glass of orange juice and spoke loudly. My son got accepted to Southridge University, top-ranked business program in the state. We should all be proud. I sat in my usual seat at the corner of the table, trying to swallow each bite. Everyone chatted and laughed. No one asked how long I'd worked today. No one noticed the dark circles under my eyes. I felt like a shadow. A ghost serving someone else's joy. Derek turned to me, all excited. Sis, remember my old laptop? I just ordered a new one. Top-tier stuff. The first semester's books cost around $900 too. Dad said you'd cover tuition, so I figured I'd throw in the extra monitor. I put down my spoon and straightened in my chair. A new laptop? Extra monitor? You think I'm paying for all that? Derek shrugged, completely unfazed. You have a job now. You live here for free. Mom and Dad said you'd help out with this. Before I could respond, Dad looked up from his glass and spoke in an even tone that couldn't hide the steel beneath. Vivian will handle Derek's first semester tuition. Families support each other. Your brother deserves the best start. And you, now that you're working, should take responsibility. I stared at my father for a long moment. For a flash, I saw the man who taught me to ride a bike, who once held my hand through the park. But the image vanished as he turned away, as if what he'd just said was completely normal. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. I've been paying rent for 6 years. I buy groceries for the whole house every week. I paid for the plumbing repairs when the pipes burst last winter. The car I bought with my own money is gone. And now you want me to pay Derek's college tuition too. The table fell silent. My mom put down her fork, the clink sharp and cold. Don't make a scene, Vivian, she said softly but firmly. Your brother needs a strong start. You're the most understanding one in this family. No, Mom, I said slowly, each word carving deep. I'm the one this family takes for granted. Derek gave a nervous chuckle, trying to lighten the mood. You're being dramatic again. Dad's right, you're just helping out for the first semester. After that I'll get a scholarship or take out loans. Families support each other, right? Do you even know how much the first semester costs? I turned to him, eyes no longer gentle. Over $14,000. You think I just have that lying around? Have you ever asked how I'm handling my own student debt? He went quiet for a moment, then looked at Dad. But Dad said it's fine. Dad slammed his glass down, narrowing his eyes. You're getting selfish, Vivian. Got a job and forgot who raised you. Now that your brother's starting college, you should offer to help without being asked. I stood up from my chair, and the screech of wood against wood cut sharply through the air. I looked around the dinner table, at the dishes I once loved, the memories I once clung to, the people who once meant everything to me. But tonight, more clearly than ever, I realized I was no longer a part of it. And when my mother brought out the cake, candlelight flickering across Derek's face, everyone burst into song for him. No one looked at me. No one remembered that I too was born in this house on this very day. I turned away, quiet but resolute, leaving the laughter and candlelight behind. Because I knew that light was never meant for me. I stood tall, looked my father in the eye, and said firmly, "Dad, I'm not paying Derek's tuition." The room froze. Every voice vanished, leaving only the ticking of the wall clock. My father stood, his tall frame casting a shadow over the table. His face was like stone as he spoke, slow and cold. "If you don't want to be part of this family, then you can leave." His words struck like a decree, pushing me toward the edge of isolation, but also issuing a challenge I had never heard before. Derek sneered, mocking, "You never knew how to be part of this family. That's the problem. Everyone's tried to keep you around, but all you do is resist." I could feel the contempt, the hostility in every syllable. This wasn't the little brother I used to protect. This was someone who had chosen a side, defending a household that now felt more like a cage than a home. My mother burst into tears. But her crying wasn't soft or soothing. It was a sharp cry of disappointment, the sound of a mother who thought she was protecting her children, and ended up hurting the one who sacrificed the most. "Vivian, you're ungrateful. Heartless. You think everything in this house belongs to you? You think you have the right to walk away from family responsibility." Her words stabbed deep, painful, but they also made me stronger. I took a long breath, keeping my voice steady. "Mom, I've been carrying this house for years. Rent, repairs, groceries, I did it all so this roof wouldn't fall in. So Derek could focus on school." Dad waved a hand, irritation sharp in his voice. "That's your duty. You're an adult now. You should share the burden." "But I'm not an ATM, Dad. I have my own limits." My brother cut in, sarcasm lacing his tone. "You always talk about limits. But really, you just don't want to share." I felt the heat rising in my chest, but I kept my calm. "I don't mind sharing. What I won't do is be taken advantage of." Mom stood abruptly, tears running down her cheeks, her voice trembling. "Family is everything. Don't hurt us like this." I looked at her and saw only sorrow and confusion in her eyes. I knew she didn't truly want to hurt me, but she was trapped between what she called family and the pressure he put on her. Dad stepped closer, his voice commanding, "If you walk out, don't come back. This family doesn't need someone who only takes and never gives." A chill raced down my spine, but I didn't flinch. If staying means being treated like a cash machine, like an outsider, then I'd rather leave and build a life on my own terms. Derek scoffed. "Then go. Just don't forget who raised you." I clenched my fists, forcing back a scream. "You'll never understand what it's like to live every day in a house that calls itself home, but makes you feel worthless." Mom gasped, struggling to hold herself together. But her eyes gave her away. She was drowning in pain and uncertainty, torn between two sides she never thought she'd have to choose from. I turned and quietly climbed the stairs, leaving behind voices sharp as knives and eyes filled with resentment. Something shifted inside me. No more silence. No more submission. Only a small but burning fire. I knew I'd never return to that cycle again unless something truly changed. Downstairs in the kitchen, my mother's sobs and my brother's triumphant laughter echoed through the cold air, reminding me this wouldn't be an easy war. But I was ready to step out of that shadow. I sat in my room, dazed, the glow of my desk lamp spreading over the worn wooden surface where I once studied for nursing school. Beside me lay the folder I had started reopening, one page at a time, like I was finally seeing my life for what it was. I flipped through receipts, handwritten bills, itemized utilities, leaky pipe repairs, water heater replacements, roofing contracts. Some papers were yellowed with age. Others bore stains from late-night coffee spilled after emergency shifts. I'd kept them all. Partly because I'm organized. Mostly because I needed to remind myself that I hadn't been living here for free, like Dad always implied. I grabbed my notebook and began tallying. Monthly rent. $400 times 6 years equals $28,800. Water pipe repairs. $1,750. New roof, $3,200. Refrigerator, $1,300. Groceries, about $100 per week x 52 weeks x 4 years equals $20,800. Emergency family contributions, $6,000. And that $2,000 I gave mom from my first hospital bonus, to hold on to, never saw it again. The rough total? Nearly $62,000. Not a single thank you. Not a single acknowledgement. In their eyes, it was just my duty. I carefully filed everything into a new folder. This time not for memory but for battle. I turned to the papers related to the Toyota Corolla, the only asset I ever bought for myself. I'd spent 6 months researching, comparing models, visiting 3 used car dealerships before settling on it. I still remembered the feeling behind the wheel on that first spring day, breeze in my hair, hope in my chest. Now it was just a transfer form with 2 signatures. One was mine, real. The other was my name but not my handwriting. I stared at it. Sloppier. More stretched out. Strangely shaky. I had only signed once, when Dad told me to renew the registration, that rushed morning before work. I remember asking, "Didn't we already do this?" He said, "This is for the warranty. Hurry and sign, you'll be late." I signed. No reading. No checking. Looking back, I felt like a fool. I snapped a photo and sent it to Alyssa, the only true friend I had since college. She's a civil attorney specializing in personal assets. We'd crammed for exams together in the community college library, shared instant noodles in my car when we couldn't afford to eat out. The text was short. "Alyssa, I need you. It's serious. File attached." Less than 2 minutes later, my phone rang. It was her. "Vivian, what is this? A forged signature? On a car transfer form? Are you sure?" I nodded, even though I knew she couldn't see me. "I didn't sign that document. I only signed one paper, and at the time, my dad told me it was a warranty confirmation for the car." Alyssa stayed silent for a moment. Then she exhaled deeply. "Vivian, this is serious. It's legal document forgery. If the car was under your name and got sold with a forged signature, that's property fraud. Do you still have the original documents from when you bought the car?" "Yes. I kept everything. Every payment receipt, the wire transfers, even the original purchase agreement." "That's good. You're holding very strong evidence." I bit my lip, my voice small. "Do you think I can get it back?" Alyssa didn't answer right away. A beat later, she said seriously, "It's not just about getting your car back, Vivian. This could become a civil lawsuit if you want it to. And if we take it all the way, your dad could be facing criminal charges for document forgery and asset misappropriation." I gripped the phone. My hands were freezing. I hadn't expected things to escalate like this. I just wanted respect. Recognition. To hold on to something that was mine. Alyssa seemed to read my mind. "I know you don't want to cause a scene. But Vivian, what they've been doing to you isn't just unfair. It's financial manipulation long term. And now it's fraud. If you don't stand up, they'll keep going. Not just with you." I closed my eyes. A tear slid down my cheek. "Can you help me?" My voice cracked. "I will. From this moment on, you're not alone." I hung up and sat still in the room, the laptop's glow casting light across open folders. The space was silent, but inside me a storm was beginning to rise. For the first time in years, my heart wasn't beating from fear, but from courage. I opened the laptop and created a new folder. I named it Truth and Evidence. I began scanning every document, every receipt. I numbered each one, gave clear titles, saved copies to an external hard drive, and sent duplicates to Alyssa. I didn't know where this would lead. But one thing I knew for sure. The car was gone, but they wouldn't take my voice. I would speak. With the voice of truth, with every document, every number, and with the life I had silently endured for too long. I started packing a little after 11 at night, when the house had gone quiet after the tension-filled dinner. My room was small, but it held more than just belongings. It held years of endurance, restraint, and trying to be the good daughter. Now each item I placed into the suitcase carried a memory and scars that never fully healed. I chose carefully only the essentials. My hospital scrubs, night shift shoes, the thick coat I bought last winter, and the sweater my mother knitted when I started college. Even though everything had changed, I couldn't throw it away. Not for the item but for the past I once believed in. I opened the desk drawer and took out my moss green notebook, where I had recorded every expense since I was 18. I placed it into the document pouch along with a copy of the car purchase agreement, the original registration, a detailed breakdown of over $62,000 I'd contributed over 6 years, and printed bank statements stamped by the bank. I backed up everything to 3 USB drives. One to keep, one for Alyssa, and one sealed in an envelope hidden in the lining of my suitcase. Next, I opened my laptop, logged into every banking account, and transferred all my savings to a separate account under a neutral name. I changed my email passwords, erased personal information from the family desktop, cleared the browser history, and logged out from all linked devices. I set my phone on the table and looked at the clock. 2:41 a.m. I walked down to the kitchen. That familiar space, where I once made coffee at 5 in the morning before shifts, was now just a quiet backdrop to a farewell without ceremony. I opened the drawer beneath the fridge and took out a cream-colored envelope I had already sealed. Inside were 24 pages of carefully prepared documents: the expense log, forged signature photos, bank statements, vehicle transfer forms, miscellaneous family expenses. Every section had a code, a date, and clear notes. I placed it on the counter, right where my mom used to post the weekly menu. I wrote a bold, all-caps line across the envelope: Financial Abuse Report. For review before I go to court. I stood there a long while after setting it down. A part of me still hoped something might change, that my mom would walk out and ask what I was doing, that she'd cry and hug me, that my dad would say, "I'm sorry," even just once. But the house replied only with the soft hum of the fridge and the yellow glow of the kitchen light across an empty table. I left a small note beneath the envelope, just one sentence: "The first and last time I reclaim what's mine." Finally, I returned to my room, rolled my suitcase to the door, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and took one last look around. On the desk was a photo of Derek and me as kids, taken in a summer park, arms around each other, ice cream smeared on our mouths. Below it, my framed nursing degree from when I got hired at the hospital. I took the degree out, placed it in my bag, and left the frame behind, empty. At exactly 2:58 a.m., I opened the door gently to avoid the squeaky hinges. The April night breeze was cool against my face and I shivered instinctively. The front yard was misty and Dad's SUV still had raindrops from the afternoon storm. I wheeled the suitcase down the porch steps, each step measured like even the sound could awaken the past. I didn't look back. Didn't double-check. Didn't wait for anything. I just walked like I never truly belonged there. On my phone screen, Uber showed 3 minutes away. I waited by the old jasmine hedge, the scent faint but soothing. My heart wasn't light, but it wasn't weighed down anymore either. It was just still. So still it almost made me cry. 3 minutes later, headlights cut through the alley. A gray sedan pulled up, back door swung open. The driver was a woman around 50, salt and pepper hair in a neat bun. She glanced at my suitcase, then into my eyes, and gently asked, "Moving out, sweetheart?" I nodded. "I'm going to reclaim my name. And maybe the right to keep what's mine." She didn't ask more. Just said softly, "You're right on time." I opened the door, slid into the seat, the suitcase settled with a soft thud in the trunk. As the car pulled away from the street I'd lived on for 26 years, I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew regret has never been enough to keep someone who's just learned how to stand tall. Just minutes after I stepped into Alyssa's apartment, my phone started buzzing non-stop. I placed it on the kitchen counter near the window, the screen lighting up and dimming again and again like a feverish pulse. One call after another: Dad, Mom, the house landline, then Uncle Robert, Aunt Elaine, even Mrs. Mavis from across the street, whom I'd barely exchanged more than a good morning with. I didn't pick up. I just watched. Not out of coldness, but because I already knew none of those words would be, "Are you okay?" They'd all be, "How dare you?" Not long after, the messages started flooding in. From Dad: "You really gonna humiliate the whole family like this? I could lose my job if the board finds out. Family matters stay in the family. You really want the whole world in on this?" I sighed, not replying. The next messages came from Mom. Same tone as always, tight, accusatory, mixed with emotional collapse. "Vivian, I can't believe you'd do this to us." Derek's crying. He can't believe his own sister would betray her family. If you still care even a little, you'll come back and talk like an adult. I sat there in silence, staring at the words. Not a single one about the car. No apology. Nothing about forging my signature, taking my property, or pushing me to the edge. It was all about them. Their honor. Their feelings. Their loss. Alyssa came out of the office carrying 2 mugs of hot tea. She sat down across from me, glancing at the phone that was still lighting up nonstop. They found out. I nodded, my lips dry. The whole family's in a spiral. She didn't say anything, just slid the mug toward me. Under the soft kitchen light, the space around me felt peaceful for the first time in days of chaos. A moment later, my phone buzzed again. But it wasn't Dad or Mom. It was Derek. The message was short. Is it true? You really bought the car? I stared at that line for a long time, like someone had just gently tapped on the cracked glass of the relationship between me and my little brother. I typed out a reply, then deleted it. Typed another, deleted again. Finally I wrote, yeah. I bought it. With my own money. All of it. Almost instantly, Derek replied, Dad said they gave you the car to make up for nursing school costs. Mom said the same. Reading that, I felt a wave of sadness but not surprise. They didn't just lie to me. They lied to him too. I typed, did you ever ask me? You just believed whatever they said. Derek went silent for a while. Nearly 20 minutes passed before he replied, I don't know what to believe anymore. I remember when you got the car. You had some papers with you for the bank. But later Dad said those were for documenting joint family assets. I thought you agreed. I typed, I never agreed to share the title. They forged my signature. He responded, do you have proof? I paused, then wrote, yes. Original paperwork, statements. Enough for a court case. He didn't reply right away. I leaned back in the chair, closed my eyes. What I felt wasn't anger, it was grief. Regret. That ache of knowing someone who once called you the best sister in the world, now didn't know what to believe. A few minutes later, another message came from Derek. If you really had the proof, why'd you let the whole family find out like this? I bit my lip. Typed each word like pulling it from somewhere deep in my chest. Because for 10 years I spoke nicely. And no one listened. His final message brought tears to my eyes. I'm sorry. I thought they loved you, just differently. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. But because I understood. Today someone in that house just opened their eyes. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was Uncle Robert. Kiddo, your dad's calling all over the place. They're saying you're threatening to sue the family? What's going on? Aunt Elaine texted too. Your mom said you took the wrong papers, that you misunderstood. But if you really have proof, tell me. I'll stand on the side of what's right. Even Mrs. Mavis, the neighbor across the street, sent an email. Vivian, I don't know the whole story, but I once heard your mom say, that girl always thinks she knows everything. Doesn't need her family. But I've always seen you as the hardest working person in that house. If you need anything, I'm just across the street. I set the phone down, cradling the now cold cup of tea. My mind wasn't filled with their shouting anymore. Just one thought rang clear. The truth, once revealed, can never be silenced again. And even if someone is crying, screaming, or denying it, that storm didn't come from me. It came from what they did, and now they have to stand in its eye without me shielding them anymore. 2 days after I left the house, on a drizzly afternoon, Alyssa called me. Her voice wasn't its usual calm. It held a tension I hadn't heard before. Vivian, I need you to stay calm, she said carefully. Your dad just filed a report with the police saying the car was stolen. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Stolen? You mean, he's saying I stole my own car? No. He said the car was a gift to him and his daughter, meaning you, and that it was sold without his consent. He's calling it illegal seizure of family property. I stood up, the heat rising to my face. But the car's already sold. He took the money, not me. I know. Thankfully, the police requested documents before opening a case file. Alyssa paused. And when they looked at the transfer papers, they noticed something. I sat back down, hearing the rain tapping against the window. Alyssa continued. An investigator from the state property office confirmed that the second signature doesn't match your official records from the bank or your personal files. Different stroke pattern, pen pressure, letter shapes. They're keeping the original for forensic analysis. I closed my eyes. It was hard to believe a father could do this to his daughter. But then again, when power and pride are threatened, anything becomes possible. Your dad doesn't know we already submitted everything to the police. They received the full file yesterday, including your original car contract, your authentic signature, and a full legal comparison report. I stayed silent, letting her speak. And this afternoon, Alyssa said slowly, they called him in. During questioning, the investigator asked, "Can you confirm this is your daughter's real signature?" And he answered, "I'm her father." "I know." I let out a bitter laugh. You couldn't get a vaguer answer than that. The issue is, right after that, when they displayed the signature comparison on the screen, he went completely silent. Alyssa lowered her voice. And just 3 minutes later, he asked to see a lawyer. Around 3 in the afternoon that day, I received an email from the city police department. It had a PDF attachment titled, Temporary Non-Prosecution Agreement, Case Number 2024-78C. I opened the file. It was an official statement, stamped with a legal seal, confirming that Gerald Nash, my father, had signed a document admitting to forging my signature in the vehicle ownership transfer and misusing personal information to sell an asset registered under someone else's name without consent. The report clearly stated, to avoid criminal prosecution, Mr. Gerald Nash agrees to compensate the harmed party, Vivian Nash, and pledges not to further seize property or exert financial pressure in any form. I read every line. There wasn't a shred of triumph in me, only a heavy, hollow silence stretching across my chest. Alyssa messaged again. He looked furious. But he couldn't argue. The officer told him plainly, "If you want to take this to court, your daughter will win." I typed back, "What about my mom? Was she there?" Alyssa replied almost instantly, "No." But the officer said she called the office while he was being held and asked, "Can my daughter drop the charges if we apologize publicly?" I stared at that message, half wanting to believe it, half wanting to laugh. After everything, the first thing they said wasn't a personal apology, wasn't to ask if I was okay. It was, "Is there a way to make this disappear?" Alyssa messaged again. "Vivian, I'm not saying this to pressure you, but right now you have a real chance to claim not just the value of the car, but all the financial damages from the past years. The rent, the living expenses, you documented everything." I sat still. In my mind, I didn't see my father in a police station. I saw him slamming his hand on the dinner table when I was 20, yelling because I hadn't handed over money fast enough when he urgently needed to fix the roof. I saw my mother quietly pocketing the bracelet my grandmother left me and never giving it back. I saw Derek mocking me for being so stingy living under this roof. Those things, they weren't just dull aches in my chest anymore. They were evidence. And I truly understood what Alyssa once told me when we sat studying under the warm yellow lights of the community library. Justice isn't about revenge. It's the moment you make the truth be heard. And my truth at last was beginning to be heard. I moved to Wilmington on a bright Monday morning. The early summer air was cool, as if the universe itself was taking a quiet breath with me. The apartment I rented was barely more than 300 square feet on the second floor of an old building with creaky wooden stairs. But to me it was an entire world. No one knocked asking for money. No one left sticky notes demanding I help with family matters. No one barged in or gathered up my things like boundaries didn't matter. I arranged everything myself. A small armchair by the window. A clean kitchen counter with 2 chairs. A second-hand wooden bookshelf I bought online, filled with medical texts and half-read novels I'd abandoned during night shifts. It was simple, but I felt peace, because I knew everything there was mine by choice. My new role was team lead nurse at Wilmington Regional Hospital. A bigger hospital, clearer specialties, a more professional and respectful work environment than I'd ever had. My salary increased by over 30%. I had better health benefits and even a tuition stipend if I wanted to specialize further. But the most valuable thing I received was the respect in my colleagues' eyes and the sound of my name being called correctly during staff meetings. The first week passed in much-needed quiet. I cut off all contact with my parents, changed my mailing address, and gave my new information to only Alyssa and Derek. But they still tried to cling to whatever fragments remained. That Friday night, I received a handwritten envelope with no return name, just marked "from home." I knew that handwriting. Delicate, slightly slanted, hesitant. It was my mother's. She filled 3 pages. No direct apology, but a string of pleading lines. I didn't realize things had gone so far. I just wanted to hold the family together. Your father has a temper, but he's under the most pressure. If you can find it in your heart to forgive, we can start over. Derek needs his sister. I need you too. I read the letter under the soft kitchen light of my tiny home. It never once mentioned the forged signature. Never the $60,000 I lost. Not the car. Not how they kicked me out just because I said no. All it spoke of was their shame. I didn't reply. A few days later, I got a message from Derek from a new number. Sis, I started working at the cafe near school. 5 hours every night. Pretty tiring. But the hourly pay's decent. I stared at the message, something sinking inside me. Derek, the brother who once said I didn't act like family, was now stepping into the world of work, of small paychecks, of exhaustion after class. A few minutes later came a second message. Now I get what it feels like to be expected to sacrifice all the time. That feeling where you're just a solution to everything, not someone who gets to choose. I put the phone down on the table and something inside me softened, like a stream finally finding release. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I understood. Some people don't grow up in the same moment. Some need everything to collapse before they see the first crack. Every day on my way to work, I cross a small wooden bridge behind my building. The path to the hospital is lined with maple leaves, golden sunlight filtering through the canopy above. On that bridge, I often pause for a few seconds, breathing in deeply, like my own private ritual, to remind myself I'm living a different life now. A life not ruled by others, not held hostage by the word family when it was choking me. One shift, I came across a 15-year-old girl quietly sitting beside her mother's bed in the ER. Her eyes were red but dry. When I walked over, she looked up and asked softly, "Can I sleep here with my mom if I promise not to bother anyone?" I looked into those eyes, strong and tired, and I saw myself years ago. I rested my hand gently on her shoulder and nodded, "Yes. I'll bring you a pillow in a bit." Later, I returned to the break room, sat down, and realized I was crying. Not for her, but because I saw that I had finally become the person that girl needed. No longer the daughter forever trying to be loved the right way, but a woman who knew exactly where her worth lay, and wouldn't let anyone blur it again. That morning, a quiet Saturday, sunlight filtered through the curtains. I had just brewed a cup of coffee and was about to sit down to finish a chapter of my book. Everything in my tiny apartment felt so peaceful. It almost made me believe the storms were finally behind me. There were 3 firm knocks at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Curious, I walked over and opened it. Standing before me was a middle-aged man in a light gray suit, holding a leather briefcase. He looked neat, almost too formal for a quiet weekend morning. "Vivian Nash?" he asked politely. "Yes, that's me." He nodded, then reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick sealed envelope. The label on the front bore the logo of Southern Coast Trust Bank. I squinted. That was the bank my grandmother used to have an account with, though I hadn't been in touch with them for years. "I'm the manager of the Estate and Inheritance Department. According to a file created over 4 years ago, there's a special fund entrusted by your grandmother, Mrs. Hazel Jameson. It was only to be opened once we received confirmation from the family attorney that the activation condition had been fulfilled." I frowned. "Condition?" "Yes. In the file, Mrs. Hazel clearly stated, only release this money when my granddaughter, Vivian Nash, has shown she can stand up for herself. The attorney sent confirmation last week that you had taken independent legal action to protect your personal assets from family misuse. This is the authorization to release the fund." I stood frozen. My hand trembled slightly as he handed me the envelope. Inside, I found clearly printed documents. Savings account, $45,000, account holder, Vivian Nash. I was speechless. My heart felt both warm and achingly tender. My grandmother, the only one who had quietly seen me, had been preparing this for me long before I found the courage to walk away from the house that once held me captive. The manager gave a courteous nod and left after completing the handover. I closed the door, envelope still in hand, and walked slowly to the kitchen table. When I opened the remaining contents of the envelope, a handwritten letter slipped out, firm strokes tilted slightly to the right, unmistakably Grandma Hazel's. I read it, and each line felt like it spoke straight to my soul. "My dearest Vivian, I don't know when you'll read this letter, but I've always believed the day would come when you'd stand on your own. And on that day you won't need anyone to say, 'I'm proud of you,' because you'll already know it. I witnessed more than I could say. I saw the meals you cooked that no one praised, the gifts you gave that were brushed aside, the times I handed you something and your mother quietly put it away. But I didn't speak. My silence wasn't agreement, it was waiting for something else. I was waiting for you to see yourself. This money isn't a reward for being obedient. It's recognition for your courage. You don't need to spend it right away. Use it when it truly matters for your dream, whether that's further schooling, starting a small shop, or simply living peacefully. I love you. Not because you're perfect, but because you dared to live true to yourself." I sat for a long time, not wiping the tears that landed on the paper. I let them soak into the letter, as if a part of my heart was being gently healed by those simple words. I remembered the afternoons when I was little, sitting at Grandma's feet while she knitted by the window and I read comic books. She didn't say much. But every time my mother scolded me for spilling water or getting a bad grade, Grandma would quietly place her hand on my shoulder, not defending me, not scolding, just a quiet gesture that said, "I see you." I don't know when she created that fund. Maybe it was when I started working part-time. Or when I told her I wanted to study nursing but had to cover the tuition myself. Or maybe it was much earlier, when she saw that I knew how to stay silent, how to step aside, but never had anyone step aside for me. I folded the letter gently and placed it inside a small wooden box where I kept my most precious things. My graduation photo, an old necklace Grandma used to wear, and now, a document that proved I no longer had to earn my worth. I had claimed it by choosing myself. And the only woman who had quietly believed in me had never truly left. The small apartment I now lived in wasn't fancy. A dark wood dining table with 3 chairs, a worn-out armchair I bought from a thrift store, a few crooked photo frames on plain white walls. But within all that simplicity I felt peace, a feeling I once thought I had no right to. I was sitting on the floor, leaning against the sofa, flipping through Polaroids from the old camera Alyssa gave me. One shot of the two of us in raincoats waiting for the train, drenched and laughing until our eyes crinkled. Another from my birthday, just a tiny cake with 2 candles because, as Alyssa said, women over 25 don't need numbers, just wishes. And there was Derek on his first visit to Wilmington, awkwardly wearing a white shirt with the sleeve threads still uncut. I set the photos down, wiped my hands and walked to the kitchen. The turkey was nearly done, its aroma filling the air. I had cooked it just the way my mother used to. But this year there was no hand-grabbing for the first piece, no muttered complaints about the cost, no watchful eyes judging me for smiling too long at someone. My first real Thanksgiving, not with the family I grew up with but with the people I chose to stay. Alyssa arrived early with a thermos of hot apple cider and a sweet potato pie. She stepped in, unwinding her scarf, her eyes bright. "This place may be small, Viv, but it's so cozy. Smells just like my grandma's house used to." I smiled. "Then it's perfect." Derek showed up about 20 minutes later. I heard clumsy footsteps in the hallway. When I opened the door, he stood there in an old coat holding a box of strawberry pie. I didn't know what to bring. Alyssa said this one was the safest choice. I looked up at him. Derek's face looked thinner, a faint wrinkle on his forehead like a trace of sleepless nights. But his eyes had changed. Less arrogance, less indifference, and a shyness I had never seen back when he was the 18-year-old boy our parents coddled. "Come in," I said and quietly closed the door behind him. We had dinner together. No shouting, no tallying up who brought what, no mention of the money I had once given. We simply asked each other which dish tasted best, joked about Alyssa's overly gingery cider, listened to Derek talk about working at a grocery store, where an elderly woman called him by the wrong name for 3 straight weeks and he didn't have the heart to correct her. After cleaning up, Derek helped me stack chairs, then stood silently looking at the photos on the wall. He pointed to one of me and Alyssa at the beach. "You look really happy in this one." I nodded. "I feel like myself." Derek turned back, his hands clasped together, eyes carrying something he hadn't yet said. "You know, when you left the house I was so angry. I felt like you were throwing everything away. But now I get it. When the whole family saw you as the bank, as the one who carried all the responsibility but was never allowed to say no, then you leaving wasn't betrayal. It was survival. I stayed quiet. There was no anger left in me, only a soft ache like an old scar that had finally healed. I'm starting to understand, Derek continued. And now I want to learn how not to become like mom and dad. I didn't respond. I just went to get him the last mug of hot apple cider, handed it to him, then sat down beside him. Outside the window, night had fallen completely. A few apartments across the way had warm yellow lights on. From one, a faint laugh floated through, someone's family sharing a quiet evening. I looked around my apartment, nothing of material value but filled with everything I had once lacked: kindness, choice, and recognition. I watched Alyssa laughing gently with Derek. I looked at the table runner we had embroidered together with the words, "We choose each other." Then I thought of everything that had come before, all the years I lived to please others, to protect a warped version of filial piety. And now, free from the chains of imposed duty, I knew I was stepping into another life. A life where family no longer meant people who shared my last name. Family is the one who doesn't sell the car I bought with my sweat-soaked paycheck, who doesn't use love as a bargaining chip or ask me to abandon myself just to be accepted. And in the end, family is the one who lets me smile on a winter night, look back on the past, and feel no pain. What about you? Have you ever been assigned a burden just because you were the one who could take it? Have you ever been hurt by the very people who were supposed to love and protect you unconditionally? Or maybe, have you ever had to choose between holding on to your sense of duty and holding on to yourself? I'm not sharing this story to complain. I'm sharing it because there are too many people like me. People who stayed silent, who forgot that family should never be a cage, and that true love never demands you give up everything just to be seen. If this story touched something in your heart, leave a comment below. I want to hear from you. And maybe someone else out there needs to hear you too. Don't forget to subscribe if you believe some stories need to be told. Not to divide us, but to heal. Because my journey isn't over yet. And there are still so many truths, so many shadows, so many moments inside perfect families, waiting to be brought into the light. We'll meet again in the stories to come, where truth isn't hidden and hearts are seen exactly as they are.